Hi, my name is Nikita. I'm a normally disabled person from India and I'm also a member of the GLEAB. My pronouns are she and they.
Hi, I'm Tate and I am the chair of the GLEAB. So the GLEAB is the Global Experiential Advisory Board, and it is an advisory board that is made up of a diverse group of people. So we have people from the Philippines, from Zimbabwe, Indonesia, Canada, Nigeria, and India. So these people make up the patient and public involvement aspect of the GALENOS project, and they have lived experience of the different mental health issues that we are looking at within the project.
Lived experience is very important research because research cannot get biased when you're looking at a certain data. But when as a lived experience advocate, you're able to talk more at a deeper level. You're able to talk about your own experiences, which sometimes lacks when research, which is more rigid in nature. Right now, research has been looking at literature with a certain population and is still missing out on the underrepresented population. And as an advocate of the community and as a representative community, lived experiences here becomes so important and more significant.
Yeah, and just to add on to what Nikita is saying as well, when lived experience is involved, there's ownership in terms of the research as well that is being done. So it steers the research in the direction that actually captures what people with mental health issues really go through, instead of just living it as something that's just theoretical, but it becomes more practical, more realistic, and it speaks to the individual themselves.
I think adding on to that, I think it also helps with the representation of communities. Like the both of us belong from the Global South, and we know how much research is limited right now with what it knows. And having members from the Global South, which are so many of us, actually majority of us are, it's actually giving it a better voice and a better shape, because right now research in these communities are none. And we don't know a lot about it, and so lived experiences help especially give that gap and awareness. I got actually involved with this project through a friend who sent me this tweet, and I remember reading about it and thinking this is the project for me. This is something that speaks about how lived experiences are important, and I've been doing it for almost a few years now. And I remember reading more about it and just wanting to sign up, because this is something that I go through on a daily basis. Anxiety and depression is something that I've been for a long time, known for a very long time, and I've also have someone that has depression. So yeah, that's how I got involved with it.
I saw it on the MQ Mental Health Research Twitter page back then, when it was still Twitter. So yeah, that's how I found out about the opportunity, and I was interested in it because I've also been involved in lived experience projects here and there. And it was also because it focuses on living systematic reviews. That's also another aspect that I've been involved in. So yeah, that's how I got onto this project. So GALENOS is an acronym for the Global Alliance for Living Evidence Synthesis on Depression, Psychosis, and Anxiety. And it's basically a project that focuses on capturing or basically putting together the best scientific literature of living systematic reviews that has both animal studies and human studies that are then triangulated together in order to give out the best output for research prioritization.
To add to that, there's also a project that is trying to understand how much of literature that we know and what can we do and in which direction can we lead. Like I said, literature right now is limited and it's to a surface level. And right now, researchers cannot put the hat of being from a biased opinion and starting to do research. But as a lived experience experts, what we're trying to do is trying to make the flow of where the research is heading. And GALENOS is exactly doing that by trying to understand what data is there, what do we know about it, and where it's lacking. So when researchers now pick it up, they know exactly where to start instead of from the gaps that have already been existing and the gaps continue to exist. I think our role here helps so much because I think it helps us give a direction, especially to focus on certain populations and certain topics that couldn't have been done for decades. My experiences with anxiety, depression, and my experience also being a representative of two different communities is very, very essential and I think very beneficial to this project. One being because I feel like constantly the community that I come from, both the communities that I come from, are going through a lot of things, including anxiety, and that's something that's least spoken on. And I feel like that's something that I bring on this project is trying to always advocate and probably challenge in some ways if we are taking the voices of this community. So I think my lived experience with that and also being a caregiver of someone that has depression is I think both these perspectives are able to put in on what research is lacking and what research needs to go ahead with. So I think my experience is more on how we can focus better on communities and also on trying to understand topics that have been for long, in research but still lack tiny little things.
And as someone who comes also from one of the communities that Nikita has talked about, I also think that the way that the project is set up my experience will come in and help in terms of research prioritization. So when we have things like triangulation meetings, selecting the living systematic review questions, because that's also something that lived experience advisors are involved in, we can have a voice. We can really speak on what exactly needs to be focused on instead of, directing our focus to probably issues that are not really relevant to our community. So this is where my lived experience will also come in.
I think this project is super important, especially for those that are clinicians, researchers, as well as those with lived experiences, because it will help shape and understand better now with the voices of lived experiences on where we are heading and what is the gaps that for so long that have been. Interventions for anxiety, depression, psychosis, for that matter, any other mental health concerns have been limited and have not been reaching the community, or have been but not been effective. And I think lived experiences here will help fill up a little gap with whatever experiences we have had with our symptoms and trying to understand beyond the labels that it is. So I think this project is going to help, first step rather, is to help with identifying the gaps and actually being aware of it, and then hopefully working on it more.
Hopefully the project will also, like you're saying, inform other researchers as well on the importance of having lived experience advisors giving input on different projects. Like with the GALENOS project, lived experience advisors are involved right from the beginning up until the end. So it's not just project fillers here and there, but it's right throughout. So hopefully that will help researchers probably modify the way they approach research, and
I think it will also help, and I say this a lot, but I think it will also help with representation, because for once, I think researchers or communities who conduct so much research will also understand why Global South is an important part of it, I feel like it's a global health concern. You have to include the Global South, and right now research is again limited, and I would keep saying this a lot because I'm an advocate for Global South. But I feel like this will also shed light on that awareness, and it will also shed light on how we can involve lived experiences experts more, and how we are able to take them in this process. Not just use them for a certain data, but actually involve them and see why their voices are important. So I think it has a huge impact. I think for me, it's one of the most major ones is the triangulation process, which is conducted. And the triangulation process is basically where we're having experts from the human studies, animal studies, and those with lived experiences coming together and talking about how and where can research right now be heading and what's been going wrong. For example, right now we have experts coming and talking about different data sets that they have been collecting and all about what research has been doing till now. And as lived experiences, I'm able to either challenge it or either make them understand that there are gray areas to it that they need to be focusing on. And I think this is one where I will be impacted, especially because I feel like my experiences here as a researcher as well as an advocate as something that helps me be a person to identify gaps as well as direct research to certain questions that need to be asked.
I think I would say, I don't know how to rank them, because I think at every stage it's equally important, but I would say also triangulation and probably dissemination. So, when we're then disseminating the information and all the outputs that we have gathered, it's also important for us to be conscious of the audience that we are trying to reach. So this is where it also becomes important, because what's the point of carrying out research, coming out with all these ideas and, interventions that then don't speak to the population you're trying to address, So I think that's where also lived experience would be very key in terms of reaching those different audiences.